acknowledge your kingship
and lordship over our head and our ways and our thoughts. And therefore, Father, we ask that you will grant us the desire to seek you around, that we will serve our people with a heart of servanthood and with diligence. Father, let your spirit of truth hover in this honorable house today as we go about our government business, as we discuss issues of national importance. These are our prayers that we bring to you in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, who taught us the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Leader of Government Business. Petitions. Notices. Mr. Clerk.
The Minister for Justice gives notice that he shall present a bill for an act to amend the Attorney General Act 1989 and for related purposes. The Minister for Justice gives notice that he shall present a bill for an act to provide for the A, purposes of implementing Part 9, constitutional office holders and constitutional institutions of the Constitution, Section 1776 of the Constitution, and B, additional functions to those functions conferred by Section 1772 of the Constitution, and C, processes for obtaining legal aid to implement Section 1775 of the Constitution by providing for the public solicitor to make reasonable charge for the services provided by the public solicitor and for related purposes.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of Parliament to move a motion without notice.
Leave granted. Leave granted.
Mr. Speaker, I move that so much of the standing orders be suspended as would prevent notice 260 government business being called forthwith.
Question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Notice number 260, Minister for Justice.
Minister for Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I present the Electronic Transaction Bill 2021.
Mr. Clerk.
Sit down.
First reading, a bill for an act to establish a legal framework for the use of electronic transactions and for commercial and non-commercial purposes.
Mr. Minister,
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill be now read a second time.
make your speech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to present to this Honourable House and the people of Papua New Guinea this important bill on electronic commerce entitled Electronic Transaction Bill 2021. Mr. Speaker, the digital technologies are transforming the way goods and services are produced, consumed, delivered, or traded globally. In addition, innovation and digitalization has created enabling platform for delivery of basic government services such as health, education, law and order. Mr. Speaker, in the era of electronic commerce and digital economy, to stay competitive in domestic and international markets, government and enterprises are redefining their strategies, business models, policies to accommodate innovation and digitalization. Mr. Speaker, this rapid transformation from manual paper-based process to electronic data process of the global economy has opened up new growth opportunities in all sectors, including for our micro, small, and medium enterprises. It is a powerful enabler for the internationalization of our local businesses who no longer need a physical commercial presence to market and sell their products to the world. It has the potential to provide an extraordinary stimulus to the economic growth and trade in this country. Mr. Speaker, e-commerce is becoming a major pillar of internet and digital economy, which has contributed to the development of trade globally. It is one of the fastest growing segments of global trade, growing from practically zero 2 decades ago to an estimated value of over $23.3 trillion globally in 2015. Mr. Speaker, up to now, PNG had no such legal framework for electronic transaction recognition, which is an important element and precondition for the growth of e-commerce and digital economy. The lack of coherent policy and regulations has been one of the obstacles for more investment and growth of e-commerce. Mr. Speaker, the absence of such legislation undermines the idea and principles of non-discrimination against electronic transactions, their legal effect, validity, and enforceability. It results in a lack of transparency, predictable legal and regulatory approaches and measures that are business-friendly and coherent to facilitate cross-border e-commerce. Mr. Speaker, lack of appropriate legislation further undermines our ability to remain competitive, as business has to be conducted faster, at lower costs, and at higher security standards in a rapidly changing, increasing, complex global trading environment. Mr. Speaker, recognizing the situation in line with the priority of this government to grow our economy, my ministry, assisted by key government agencies and development partners, to facilitate this bill to Parliament. This legislation will ensure transparency, legal predictability, facilitate better connectivity to our local SME into the global marketplace, and further grow our internet and digital economy. Mr. Speaker, the specific objectives of this legislation are as follows: the facilitation of electronic communication by means of reliable electronic records, facilitation of electronic commerce to eliminate barriers of electronic commerce resulting from uncertainties over writing or signature requirements, and to promote the development of legal and business infrastructure necessary to implement secure electronic commerce. Facilitation of electronic filing of documents with public agencies, and to support the promotion of efficient delivery by public agencies of services by means of reliable electronic records. By application of principles relevant to electronic transactions, minimize the incidences of forged electronic records, intentional and unintentional alteration of records, and fraud in electronic commerce and other electronic transactions. Help to establish uniformity of rules, regulations, standards regarding the authentication and integrity of electronic records. Promote public confidence in the integrity and reliability of electronic records and electronic commerce, and foster the development of electronic commerce through the use of electronic signatures to lend authenticity and integrity to correspondence in any electronic medium. Mr. Speaker, this bill consists of 6 parts, 42 sections. The structure allows differentiation between general provisions on electronic transactions, electronic contractual issues, electronic signatures, and electronic transferable records, which follow the UN model laws and UN conventions pertaining to these areas, and specific provisions left to the discretion of national jurisdictions. Mr. Speaker, following traditional legal drafting style, Part 1 provides for the preliminaries, such as constitutional compliance of the bill and definition of terms used. It also defines the scope of application of this law. Part 2 deals with electronic transactions. It provides for applicable principles, among them the general principle of freedom of contract and party autonomy, location of the parties, and its significance in electronic environment information requirements, meaning that this Act does not affect information disclosure requirements contained in other legislation. This part also incorporates the principle of prohibition against electronic transactions. It also covers various actions in relation to data messages, admissibility and evidential weight of data messages, retention of data messages, recognition by parties of data messages, attribution of data messages, time and place and dispatch and receipt of data messages, acknowledgement of receipt. All those provisions follow the UN model law, electronic commerce. Mr. Speaker, Part 3 is specific to the electronic contracting. Firstly, declaring non-discrimination against electronic means in relation to contracts, and second, underlining specificities of contracts concluded with electronic means. Part 4, Mr. Speaker, is dedicated to electronic signatures and trust services, which sets out principles applicable to electronic signatures and conduct of signatory, service provider, and relying party. Mr. Speaker, Part 5 provides for electronic transferable records. It provides for legal recognition of electronic transferable records, conditions that make an electronic document to be considered transferable document or instrument, non-discrimination of foreign electronic transferable records, legal implications pertaining to control of a transferable document or instrument. It also provides reliability standards for electronic transferable documents and instruments, indication of time, place of electronic transferable records, and process for replacement of a transferable document or instrument with electronic record, and vice versa. Part 6 provides a miscellaneous provisions. It has only one provision that allows for regulations to be made on matters prescribed and give effect to this bill. Mr. Speaker, this bill, when adopted by this House, will create favorable regulatory ecosystem for e-commerce to promote predictability, transparency, security, fair competition, and consistency, promote development of information and communication technology infrastructure for facilitating cross-border e-commerce, including trade in goods and services, encourage and facilitate greater participation of business in global commerce, in particular medium and small enterprises, enhance cooperation between public and private sectors, including on consumer protection, contribute to trade and investment, facilitation supporting the achievement of the Vision 250, Medium-Term Development Goals 3, and the National Trade Policy 2017 to 2032, and drive the government agenda to take back PNG. Mr. Speaker, through this legislation, the government have laid a vital building block for the redevelopment of e-commerce and digital trade, and set a foundation for PNG to work towards achieving a stronger, vibrant, and economically independent Papua New Guinea through an efficient and competitive domestic market. Mr. Speaker, I must also stress the electronic transaction bill fits perfectly with the vision of this government to take back PNG and to make PNG the richest black Christian nation in the world by ensuring that our traders, and especially our micro, small, and medium enterprises, will be able to conduct their transactions under a sound legal and regulatory framework that is enforceable to ensure integrity of the transaction, security of data, and compliance with this Act. With the increase in confidence in doing business and making transactions online, I anticipate an increase in transactions by SMEs as an overall boost in the domestic economy in a medium to long run. Finally, Mr. Speaker, it will be remiss of me not to thank our development partners, in particular the European Union and all government agencies and departments who have contributed in providing the technical expertise and financial support to develop this bill. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, let me thank you for giving me this opportunity to present this important bill to this Honourable House, and I seek the support of all members for the passing of this bill. With that, I now commend the Electronic Transaction Bill 2021 to this Honourable House. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Esala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I wish to commend the Minister for Justice for bringing this important, as he said, foundational cornerstone legislation in the interest of our country going into the future. I stand to lend the support of the leaders on this side of the House and to bring to the attention of the Honorable House the important contribution that has also come through in this bill from the previous government leaders, many of them here in this House, including the Honorable Minister for Communication and his department, who are working very hard on the government's e-government policy, and the former Minister for Trade and Investment, the Honorable Richard Maru, who in his time in 2017 adopted our nation's first ever trade policy. Mr. Speaker, this bill is the direct result of the trade policy. In the trade policy, we set a commitment as a country to begin to do the necessary groundwork in order that we might position our country, and especially our SMEs, in engaging in commerce, and commerce in a context of what is happening in the country today. Transactions that are electronic, they're already taking place. We are paying our bills online. We are paying for transactions, whether goods or services, online. But we did not have such a legislation like this. And so this is an important piece of legislation. It's a timely legislation. And Mr. Speaker, as I speak, I think of our trade group that is now in Dubai. This nation has gone through the expense of sending a team to the World Trade Fair in Dubai, where they are proudly showing and showcasing our products. Our intention as a government to participate in world commerce and regional commerce. And we wonder how they will be able to participate if we do not, as a national legislation or legislature, begin to support them and protect them. Only yesterday, Mr. Speaker, or 2 days ago, the Honorable Minister for Finance went on a very long discussion about cyber security. And now we are faced with biosecurity issues in pandemics. And so this bill is also very important. We are catching up with the rest of the world. Mr. Speaker, I personally was involved in this legislation, and I'm heartened by the fact that at long last, this bill has arrived in this Honorable House. I want to secure an undertaking from the Minister responsible for the regulations that must be also promulgated. We must not drop into the culture of passing laws without regulations. We passed the ICAC Act, there is no regulation. Pandemic Act, no regulation. Now this Electronic Transactions Act, the Attorney General and his staff in DJAD must now work and bring the regulations. Otherwise our SMEs will be waiting forever. And Mr. Speaker, there is also a need for this House to pass amendments to the Evidence Act and the National Court rules, so that transactions, electronic transactions, can now be recognized. They can be proved in court. Otherwise, we will have contracts that can never be proven on the basis of electronic transactions. That is missing in this statement, and that is why I rise to encourage the Honorable Minister to consider these issues as he goes back to his department to advise them on the way forward. I also want to say that we need now a clear policy that driven to grow our domestic ICT industry. Since the days of Mr. Noah Movia in the University of Technology, about 4 decades ago, when we produced our nation's first graduates in computer engineering and software development, our leadership in this country has left that vacuum unattended to. And as I speak today, I recognize the work of the PNG ICT cluster, which is a group that represents SMEs and entrepreneurs that have been trying to get attention from government. I know they will celebrate this legislation today, but to them we owe our responsibility and a duty. I want to see SOE, Minister, moving towards a Kumul Tech concept, which is something that the former Minister Mutuvale and I were promoting in order that we might try to start to support those of our citizens in this area. We need now to have a clear strategy to develop this particular area in our economy. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the Minister for Communication and his officers have already worked hard on our e-government policy. There must be synergies. There must be some collaboration and unison in how we are approaching this area. Government must go on e-government, e-commerce, e-health, e-education, and there must be a clear strategy on investing in communication, whether it is in satellite or whether it is in improving our fiber optic capability. But right now, Mr. Speaker, as I speak, the fiber optic investment that the government under the Honorable Peter O'Neill had invested in, it seems to be hijacked by certain individual companies within the group of SOEs. And so in the intention of reaching the masses of our country, our schools in the rural areas, our businesses in the rural areas, right now they put so many roadblocks that it's almost impossible. I don't know when, maybe in the next century, Esala people will get real high quality internet delivered in our shows. So, Mr. Speaker, this is one legislation that really needs to be supported, but not just supported. More work needs to be done. And those ministers responsible for associated areas, including education, including commerce, must now work together. Because, Mr. Speaker, right now COVID-19 has caused us to look downwards, inwardly. We are troubled, we are worried, but the government must be forward-looking. We must look to the future. How will we defeat COVID-19, the post-COVID-19 era? And I'm glad that right now, Mr. Speaker, some nations are already planning their future post-COVID. Norway, for example, is now creating global conferences. Singapore, for instance, inviting regional leaders to attend conferences where they will focus on rebuilding industry post-COVID. This is a legislation that can provide a basis on which us as a nation and our brothers and sisters in the region, Pacific region, even in the Melanesian Solidarity Group or the MSG Group, Spearhead Group, to start working on our trade facilitation. So, Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill and lend my support. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kandep.
Thank you, Speaker. In support to the Minister and to the Honourable Government, I would like to also join in supporting this bill by raising some issues. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the trend of the world economy and cash flow, the financial system over the last 10 years, that new norm that we talk about today has started 10 years ago. The new norm is the digital economy. The e-commerce, e-business. There's a competition now. The competition now is on how smart or competent the country or people can become affluent and do business through internet, online trade, etc. And even with the current new norm that we've experienced, it has shut people down, locked us into our homes, away and isolated from each other doing business. But what has become very strong has been e-business, e-commerce. And this bill is very innovative and is a move in the right direction. It's a move in the right direction, and I support the points made by the Shadow Attorney General on the other side, that we have to see that as one of those most important bills that we passed today that encompass many other areas as well. Globalization, bring the world so close together, integrated trade, so close to your doorsteps. What makes it closer? It's because the instantaneous changes in technology and in the internet. It has not even given chance to people and governments to make laws comparable or to match the very fast rate at which the technology and the changes in innovation has been growing over the last very short time period. We have to catch up to that, and this bill just exactly that. Those who are keeping the focus on how integrate trade and how fast this technology is moving, how internet is becoming so useful today, those are people who are becoming successful, even businesses. In saying that, let me also raise the other issue, and that is the highway of internet or the information flow in the country. In Kandip, I use B Mobile, most of the times doesn't work. So to the people of Kandip, e-business, this lesson will become like another one of those indifferent things. You go to Pomio, I think the same thing. You go to Oksabmin, same thing. Where there's some digital network, you might get it. So we really have a dilemma there. This bill cannot be working effectively. The people will not realize the changes that the rest of the world is competing for in business unless we have a broad highway that can transmit the information and facilitate the business to grow through the e-business, e-commerce legislation, or the new digital economy. Another thing that we should look at also is the integrated government information system. Our public service on the grassroots level, they're completely oblivious of what's happening on the floor of Parliament. There's no TV there. There's no communication system there. There's no management system that manages information and strategies of government or policies of government. How we're moving to those people at the grassroots level. The district administration, the LFG administration, they have a duty to making sure that information is made affluent and made available to the people. Legislation like this. If we have an integrated system of governance allowing the information to flow, it's very important because it adds value to legislations like this. Another issue that we should look at in supporting, accompanying this legislation is the need that is there for financial inclusion of our people. I think the Bank of PNG has a program, and they have a training center there that trains people to be included in the financial development of the country, like in this bill. What are the pros and cons about it? How can they administer business through the e-business? Financial inclusion of our people is very important. There are people out there who are making money, but they're not in the banking system. They can easily do business. You put money in the banking system, the money kind of dissipates into thin air because the banks collect all those fees, etc. We have to find a way to strongly enhancing the people are included in these financial modes or modalities that we are creating through laws like this. The other very important thing, Mr. Speaker, is the local capital market. We keep on going on roadshows outside of Papua New Guinea to raise money. But we have to have a market in PNG that gives us the money. There must be liquidity here. We must have many banks here. Now, ENZ has now given up on all this macro retail banking and go to the corporate banking services. And that's not a good news. We're seeing other banks, like, for instance, Westpac, wanting to sell to other buyers. That's not a good news. We should be seeing banks wanting to do business in PNG, establishing themselves here. So when you have a bigger banking institution, a capability or capacity in PNG, it enhances financial inclusion. It enhances business to grow through e-commerce because these are the institutions that drive such policies. And the second point I'd like to raise is the integral human development. Our students in the classes, from elementary to the university level, Mr. Speaker, e-business, e-commerce requires a lot of skills. Technical, business, finance, economical, you name it. Before it used to be this president that embarrassed people. They said, oh, he thinks he knows everything. Or he thinks or something. Now that is becoming obsolete. People are knowing everything. People are multi-skilled these days. You can work for 10 jobs in 24 hours. Smart strategists, business strategists are doing that. Consultants are doing that. People are becoming more fluent in business. Multi-skilled. It's not the idea of you serve and he thinks he knows everything. No. That is something of the yesteryears. Now people are knowing everything because of the information that is available, because of development. It is right there at the fingertips. Papua New Guinea students, that's where we start. We pass laws here, but we must have an affluent society that is educated enough to be literate, to apply and use these modalities, and do business and compete with the rest of the world. We should not be preparing Papua New Guineans to only succeed in the villages against other tribesmen and women, or to win a politics election. No, we should not be making them to compete only in PNC. Let's make them become competitive in the international global business community, applying the use of internet, e-business, e-commerce, economy. The new norm today is not COVID-19, it is e-business. Because even COVID-19 is pushing everyone to using e-business. You stay locked in the house, you have to do online to order your food, your whatever kai. See how the world is going. People are now talking about electric cars. They're giving half on all these hydrochlorocarbon emitting sources of energy. They're going towards clean energy now, electric cars. So when the people are not educated, you don't skill them with all the skills. All is the law, but we come with the regulation, policy by staff, you mean parliament, also by seven, and you mean guru government staff. All people not participate. They'll never become easily accessible to financial inclusion. And finally, Mr. Speaker, all this is dependent on a proven economic management, cash flow management of this country. We hear time and time again that we are running short of this, that is not there, that is not there. It all depends on economic management, prudent. If we can now change by this way of the new norm, digital economy, even more imposed impactfully by the COVID-19 and so forth, and if we learn and do economic management better, if we can apply our money to the rightful places like human resource development, into e-commerce and innovation strategies, and focus our financing on those areas. Although we have many other areas to spend. In Kande bound to do many things there. But what are the priorities that Kande does that enhance the rest of Papua New Guinea? On how well we manage ourselves. It is not the old ways anymore, Mr. Speaker. The new way. What is a new way? It is an e-commerce way, digital economy way. It is the influencing of our people to become smart at those skills. Not just one skill. Our people must be multi-skilled. We must make them learn, guide them and train them. And then you find whatever we do on the floor of Parliament, like passing such bills, with that value, because it belongs to the people, and people are sharp, smart, intelligent, wise. Papua New Guinea will grow. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The question is that the question be now put. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk. The question is that the bill be now read a second time. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk.
Second reading, a bill for an act to establish a legal framework for the use of electronic transactions for commercial and non-commercial purposes.
Mr. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I ask leave of the Parliament to move the third reading forthwith.
Slip granted. Slip granted, Mr. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill now be read a third time.
The question is that the question be now put. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. The ayes have it. The question is that the bill be now read a third time. Would those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Those against say no. The ayes have it. In accordance with constitutional requirement, this bill must be passed by an absolute majority of 56 members. Clerk, please ring the bell. Attendants, close the doors. The question is that the bill be now read at that time. Would those in favor please stand? Those against, please stand. The results of the votes, the ayes 77 and the noes 0. Mr. Clerk.
Third reading, a bill for an act to establish a legal framework for the use of electronic transactions for commercial and non-commercial purposes.
Congratulations, Mr. Minister. You have the support of this House. Now you may come long. Haskim inoka tok sabe blongan, pobla 10-5 minutes. Honorable Member of Yanguru.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question without notice this morning will go to the Minister for Fisheries. But before me asking a question, let me start by commending the Marabe government and the Minister for the recent launch of the NFA corporate plan. And I note with interest one of the major features of the plan is the intention to revive the marine park in Medang, the PMIZ project, have it commercialized under NFA, and build the processing facilities so we can finally process 100% of our catch in Papua New Guinea. 70% of all our catch is taken offshore to countries like the Philippines, where they are processed, the fish is processed, leaving us to lose 10,000 new jobs which we could have had. Philippines has now secured special market access to the European Union market, Mr. Speaker, which means they are now competing with Papua New Guinea, who've been enjoying the special market access through the interim partnership agreement we have with the European Union. So our fish is exported there free of duty. And that's really the reason behind the growth of the industry in Papua New Guinea. So fish from Papua New Guinea caught in these waters by fisheries, by canning companies from Philippines, are taken to the Philippines, canned under the Philippines brand and shipped to the European Union market as if it's Philippines fish, but it's fish from Papua New Guinea. We are losing 10,000 new jobs, even over 10,000. Mr. Speaker, currently, NFA raises about 500 million, which comes into the coffers of the national government through the fees that we mainly charge. This industry is worth over 1.2, 1.5 billion if we are able to process all the fish in our waters. So the Marabe government must be highly commended for this decision. My question to the minister is this. Number one, Minister, can you give us a time frame on when you will start work? Is the funding been secured? When do we see some action? Because we all support that initiative. We want to see the marine park built with 9 or 2 new canneries, and we have the processing capacity to process all our fish in Papua New Guinea. So our fish is not processed in Thailand and processed in Philippines and sent to the European market to compete with our own fish. And Big Blaswa, we're losing so many jobs, so much foreign currency inflow that needs to stop. It's one of the best decisions. We support you. Please, can you tell the people of Papua New Guinea and this parliament, when is it going to happen under your new plan? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister.
The member for Yanguru South here. There's a very important question that need to be answered on the floor of Parliament this morning. And I will take some time to set some background to the questions being raised. I think I agree with him. In terms of the number of jobs being lost, I think I'll just give you a picture. RD Tuna in Medang actually employs 13,000 people. That's just one cannery. Employs 13,000 of our people. So if we look at the PMIZ, the projected number of people that would be employed in PMIZ, if it comes into fruition, is about 40,000 people. That's the number of new jobs we are looking at. He made mention that 70% of our fish are actually taken overseas, which is correct. Currently, we are processing only 30% of the fish being caught in our waters. And of the 30% being caught in our waters, that equates to, in terms of the money being made, that equates to about 292,455,000,000 US dollars. So if you look at that, that's about over 1.2 billion kina worth of money coming into this country, into the industries. In terms of the taxes, it's quite difficult for us to actually find out how much of that is actually paid as taxes to the country because of our confidentiality clauses in our tax regimes. So it's quite difficult for me to get a figure out of IRC. I've been trying for a while. It's quite difficult for me to get that figure. In terms of the sea cucumber export, in good years, we probably export up to 110 million kina, but last year's export ranges around 50 million, and that's money that's going directly to the pockets of ordinary Papua New Guineans. In terms of the time frame, Mr. Speaker, we are good to go. The only problem we have is funding. Funding is something that we can't really have to start off this good project, because as leaders in this House, we also have our local needs that seem to be pressing, having more space in the fiscal space, in the budgets, and it's quite difficult for us to actually build this transforming infrastructure. Let me give you an idea of what we are losing out on. Thailand, a country that has no tuna at all, is now the world tuna capital. Now, how is that possible? Because some smart leaders 30 years ago decided to invest in capital investments. They put in the enabling infrastructure, so it's quite easy, it's quite cheap to do business in, process 1 metric ton of tuna in Thailand than in this country. So in order to encourage industries to be established here, through the former government, they've introduced a good thing, which is called a production rebate. So we pay the price difference in processing 1 metric ton of tuna. And that equates the price difference between us doing business here and Thailand, which is the gold standard. And that equates to about 120 million of kina every year that is being given free to the industries. That is the reason why we have to build PMIZ. PMIZ is very important because what PMIZ will do, PMIZ is basically a special economic zone for fisheries. What it does is that it provides all the infrastructure necessary to cut down the cost of utilities so that we can compete with places like Thailand, who has no fish at all. This country has 37% of the world's tuna. Together with our neighboring countries, including Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, the other neighboring Pacific Islands, we have about 67% of the world's tuna. Now, if we can bring all the tuna into our canneries here, into a special economic zone and do that business here, we are looking at generating over 2 billion every year in terms of direct revenue coming into this country, not taxes. So that is the reason why PMIZ is an important project that needs to go off the ground as soon as possible. Now, there are varying opinions from other development partners like World Bank, who says that in the next few years, our fish will migrate towards the eastern part of the globe. And that means we will no longer have the resource to run our PMIZ. But we have to understand that if we have the enabling infrastructures in this country, if we have those factories here that can compete with places like Thailand, we can still go out there and do the fishing, because the fish will still be in the Pacific waters in our smaller Pacific Island countries. Now, in 1995, the PNA group of countries, which actually control more than 80% of the world's tuna, came up with a policy called a tuna domestication policy. In that policy, because countries like Marshall Islands, which is so small, other countries in the 9 countries in the Pacific Islands, which are quite small, they can't have that capacity to build infrastructure. So basically, tuna domestication policy is a policy that this country needs to, go into. And what that means is that PMIZ, when it comes on board, these smaller countries can be given an opportunity to come and have their processing centers here. And that means we will control up to 80% of the world's tuna, making us essentially the world tuna capital. So that was, in a sense, the plan that we launched. My senior leader, what it needs now is resource to finance that program. We can no longer, when gas runs out, when gold runs out, when all the extractive industry runs out, we have to look at the long-term generating opportunity for this country. And fisheries is one of them. Fisheries will never run out. We will still have fish in our oceans. Now, any smart government will invest in that space. So PMIZ is there from initial feasibility studies being done. Actually, it's one of the highly bastardized programs in our government, going from one department to another, with nothing on ground. We have drawn down on 195 million US dollar loan that the country is paying, and there's nothing to show in Bedeng. Bedeng was chosen because the beach mark area is the area where a lot of the fishing happens in terms of tuna. So that is the space that we want to go into now. And I thank the good leader. NFA has launched its 10-year development plan, the strategic plan, and we have already done feasibility studies. We are ready to go. We need funding. We need funding. Over the time, you may make him road, Nalkankan project where you may can benefit now, but not at him direct return on investment. It's about time we have to make some, strong decisions. As a government, we have to make some strong decisions and invest in this space. Because once tuna runs out, it is the coastal fisheries that will come on board. Things like sea cucumber, we can't even feed the entire country of China. We'll probably feed maybe 1,000 of its population if the whole country goes into sea cucumber. Now, we can't do those things. We have to build up on our strength. Our strength right now is tuna. We have abundance of tuna. Let's use revenue that's coming from tuna. Let's invest in those infrastructure that are necessary. There was a good decision made by the previous government of creating an infrastructure fund.
Honourable Member, we have a point of order, Honourable Minister. What's your point of order, Member for Abao?
Mr. Speaker, I think we are all convinced about the importance of this important plan that the government launched with a lot of fanfare. But the question is, the simple question that the member asked was, when is it going to start? And he has admitted that his government is not providing the funding. So I think that's the answer. There's no need to keep going.
Thank you. Honourable Member Abao, point of order, you in order. Minister Bolong, answerable question. Now, some like talk you pass that members by clear long and so on. Honourable Minister, you continue with.
Thank you. Let me finish now. Thank you. Thank you for cautioning me. We are on this floor of Parliament and we are all fighting for a space in the budget. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you, after the budget is passed, will look into it to see if your projects are actually reflected. And we are not even talking about how we generate that revenue. I think it's an important thing. Some time you may must. A lot more important something you may talk now, you may discuss here. Anyway, PM has given the assurance that we will start it next year. NFA is actually, from its internal revenue, has put aside some money to actually start the feasibility studies and do designs. So let me thank the Marape government for giving us this opportunity, for actually giving me this opportunity to lead a sector which I have no experience in. But I think it's an exciting sector that needs to grow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member Blonga Middle Ramu.
thank our that's why no in the wilderness of Bethlehem was to pass in he will lose. Thank you. Of land. Ten or 11, they've conducted that meeting or stakeholders meeting. So up to this time, we would like to know when are they going to have the stakeholders meeting and then to progress the project. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Vice Minister, I'll ask him this question along one very important road where should unlock that part of our country from Medang up to past Transkogol Valley, past Ramu River, into on the fringes of Usinabundi, right up to Middle Ramu, and come to Baya Ruti. It's an important track. I was there. I flew over it in my last visit to that part of our country, and I saw the work that our Defence Force were doing. Let me commend our Defence Force Engineering Battalion, who are present in some of those remotest areas, one of which is the road that will go up to Kabum. It's a commitment that was made. We're punching out from Ley to Finsape now, and when it goes to Indagen, hopefully on the way to Indagen in Kabum. But coming back to this road, the leader asked for a stakeholders meeting next week, Monday. Through this question, let me inform him or ask him. We can organize a meeting. He can come to my office here in Parliament, and we will meet with Defence Secretary and Defence Commander to have an update on what is happening. Defence Force presence in some of these important missing links will remain so. We've funded some money in last year's budget. We funded some in this year's budget, and we also having it in next year's budget to ensure there's consistent funding that goes to defence, and hopefully that road could see progress. There's also an allocation by Indian Exim that was secured by the last government, but has been outstanding for some time. We're working to see if that funding could be drawn down and could be worked upon. And the wharf facility. So, Mr. Speaker, lo bekem toko blogen milak assurance.
susu mamas. Look also NGO emi by pass now. Na only silent one play agent minister me forward him come lo you lo WhatsApp lo you. Na me bin talk lo you finish lo na me like talk thank you through lo response lo you and fast through. Na me commend you lo tsla but enough you talk sabo lo me pla. How by Department of Health na government lo you me by assist him to a very important NGO which I me provide him all services lo all mama lo you me especially lo all rural areas na all low income areas where only saksim bigla assistance lo this la NGO. Me like talk sabe also 80% lo funding lo NGO and come lo Australian government. Me plus I fund him 10% as all. But me like ask him also me plus lo here. This la government lo you me underneath lo policy blow and lo look sabe lo also la kind important NGO involved lo health and education. Please you me must up him to assistance so I must go on top yet. 10% as all but more yet. Now times la NGO like pass. Health minister please talk sabe lo yumi lo one and plan lo assist him to a very important NGO lo country lo yumi. Thank you, through Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Trulo. Governor Blo, Honorable Gary Jufolo, series of questions for you. The first question on PHA regulations are on track. It's with the State Solicitor's Office before it comes back to my department, so we can take it to NEC for approval. There was just some regulations that were out of date that we had to change and put back in, and it's gone through the process. With the Susu Mamas, I heard yesterday from the Honorable Governor on the status of the Susu Mamas. It's a very important entity. It's a foundation of the health department. It reaches places where the NDOH cannot reach. So I've spoken to the relevant foreign partners as well as the Secretary to furnish a report on how we can fast track and move forward in correcting the issue that we have with Susu Mamas, and I will ensure that we have outcome of this by the end of next week, because Susu Mamas is a foundation that a lot of us subscribe to and support, and it'll be a sad day if we don't help this institution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Opposition Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, me like ask him some question without notice. Igolo Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'll ask him me in relation to the recently signed gold refinery and main project between the independent state of Papua New Guinea, one time refinery holdings, PTE Limited, Singapore. Mr. Speaker, whilst I appreciate the good intention by the Prime Minister and his government to build a gold refinery and main project in Papua New Guinea, I believe this agreement, as I see it, does not fall within the policy that the Prime Minister is driving to take back Papua New Guinea. Mr. Speaker, I say this because there has been, this particular agreement has attracted a lot of concerns by our citizens, the industry players in the country, including the Chamber of Mines. Mr. Speaker, from the agreement as I see, the project agreement involves 3 very important projects, 3 different and distinct businesses. They are the gold refinery, the gold mint, the gold bank, and the gold bank. In the agreement also there is a provision for gold police. And the gold police responsibility, primary responsibility, would be to enforce and act as an authority for these gold refinery and mint project in our country. Mr. Speaker, my questions therefore are, and before I go to that question, Mr. Speaker, I want to just make it clear on the floor of Parliament that gold is an important strategic national asset. And thus follow my questions. Can the Prime Minister give us in detail and with clarity the terms of this agreement and how do we stand to benefit as a country? Secondly, can the Prime Minister inform this House who are the proponents and promoters of this project? Thirdly, can the Prime Minister inform this House and the people of our country whether or not his government did in any form conduct due diligence on the company registered in Singapore before he executed that agreement? Number 4 question, Mr. Speaker. While we all know that gold is a national strategic asset, did the Prime Minister consider, or let me put it better this way, did the Prime Minister and his government give first right of refusal to the independent state of Papua New Guinea through its state-owned company, Kumul Minerals Holdings, to build and operate the gold refinery, gold mint, and gold bank in Papua New Guinea? If not, then why not? Number 5, Mr. Speaker, alternatively, did the Prime Minister and his government approach the existing mine companies operating in Papua New Guinea and also our citizens who are also involved in gold business, in buying gold and selling gold? Did he approach them and discuss with them with the option to participate in the gold refinery and gold mint project in our country? Number 6, Mr. Speaker, did the Prime Minister and his government consider putting this all-important national strategic asset project on open tender, which would have attracted investors with vast experience of running and operating metal refinery in our country? Number 7, Mr. Speaker, why the monopoly or the exclusivity for 75 years with an option to extend for another 25 years? We are giving our country away, and it is contrary to the policy that the Prime Minister preaches on the floor of Parliament and in public podiums of Take Back PNG. We are instead giving away our country, Mr. Speaker. Number 8, Mr. Speaker, why was the project agreement signed in the absence of the legislation on the gold refinery and mint project in PNG? And I understand, Mr. Speaker, that legislation is going to come to the floor of Parliament. And the challenge is on every member of this floor of Parliament, either to support it and pass it or go against it, because, Mr. Speaker, as I say, we are giving our country for 100 years. That is like 2 lifetimes. Number 9, Mr. Speaker, I want to put the Prime Minister, his government, the so-called investor, Refinery Holdings, PTE Limited, Singapore, and this Honorable House, and the people of our beautiful country on notice that I have instructed my lawyers to seek a judicial review on this particular project agreement in the interest of our country. I also want to put on notice the proponents in this gold refinery project and mill project.
Honorable Opposition Leader, you ask him question. You know you only put him notice floor of Parliament. I'm not.
Mr. Speaker, I want to say that, Mr. Speaker, while we appreciate this project, why has the Prime Minister and his government given exclusivity to a foreign company, an important strategic national asset? Prime Minister needs to explain to our people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Prime Minister.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Me like appreciate him question belong Opposition Leader. Very good question, very important question. That is why opposition exists, to ensure that all government policies and programs are debated and we see it in the correct context. And for us, if there is any deficiency in what we're doing, then we rectify, we fix it, and we go forward. So let me place on record my appreciation to the question that the opposition leader has asked. Secondly, on the issue on the gold project that we want to embark upon, the gold refinery and minting project, it's consistent with the statement that the Fisheries Minister has made a little bit earlier. Our government, differing from past governments, are in the business of adding value in our resources in our country going forward. Fish, you may have statistics municipal of fish. How much la fish you go out there, you go out there, you go out there, na you know clear how much la money you kissing. And so, Masi got place for making fish, lo country blimi, na me play focus na. Minister, he talked up in his PMI jet. Somebody government he stop making, he go, no got focus, lo display PMI jet by only government. You may talk to lo bore money, so lo kaiken, and no got investment in the economic sector. And we never looked hard into economic sector. And so, we are making a concerted effort to all our fishing catches. No more exporting go out. Carry come inside, process them in country. And so that is a step we play walk towards longer. You may talk long forestry, same kind. Forest Minister walk long. Ogra DY no more but Salim go out must come back and put them inside. One kind of similar gold. And we can appreciate him gold he ranked very high and he step under the most sensitive. Plenty man no got we are fearing to move into that space. We are fearing to move into that space. Since 1920, or in fact 1989, 1800, someone was telling me that gold was harvested from the Million Bay waters. And then come 1920s from Waubulolo, gold harvesting yet. Come lo panguna, gold na copper harvest yet. Result lo panguna, crisis come up, one part of our country wants to break away. Ikam, Pogra, Okteri, gold go out yet. Lihir, fourth biggest gold mine, corporate tax all not declare him yet. Walk underneath the loss. Former Prime Minister, Mambo upset us and beginning Mary stuff. One may make him no check him all this or something. Barely belong country, only go out, you mean no saw. Trust right no saw exactly how much gold go out. No got you miss how much gold go out this country.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker, please. Point of order. Mr. Speaker, I think the Prime Minister should focus on answering the question that the our good opposition leader is clearly asking very specific questions. Now, if he wants to divert from that, he should provide facts. Now, when he is accusing Lear of not paying taxes, he should be very careful. Check your records. They've paid hundreds of millions of kina to the state of Papua New Guinea. Don't undermine the value of investors in this country. They are paying your taxes and paying your salary, Mr. Speaker. So give them the due respect that they deserve. Stop coming around here with con deals that has got no value to our nation. Answer the question. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Prime Minister, you wait past me. Honorable Member Plong Yalibu Pangia. Honorable W, me clear. But me like talk Savel all the member and time you raise a point of order. You know can start talk until you must look Savel you and then you start talk. You start raising point of order. Thank you. Honorable Prime Minister.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker, let me talk again after this point of order. If the former leader can sit down and have him talk to instead of mumble, now talk all up, and make him unnecessary noise. You know, some of these things we're trying to correct. Governments of past not willing to step out into unknown frontiers for our country. Unknown frontiers for our country. Frontiers that may mean we earn more money from resources in the downstream sector. Downstreaming more of the resource limit in country. That's what we are all about going forward. Now, look, me appreciate him question come to opposition leader. He means well from where he's asking. This is a big step we're trying to do. And me give assurance to opposition leader, if I can put in question, Salim question in writing camp, we will have a detailed response. Later today, there'll be a presentation on this matter. If the gold this is a company, what I'm name, gold refinery holdings, if they're proponent, now one of people sign him today, you know, in the national interest, and people, we don't know a bar of soap to this proponent. They're just a proponent for this. In fact, they've been proposing back and forth in the last 8 or 9 years. 8 or 9 years. Former Prime Minister made clear on this line. Only go come, all seek him 1990 exclusively this time. Now instruction let me go out clear along state soul. Now SNT usadi walk in this law, vet in this law submission. No 1990 exclusivity whatsoever. It must be based on 50-50 arrangement. If not, I push for 51 in fact. 51%, meaning majority ownership, Papua New Guinea stakeholders must own him. Now me talk, me plan not put him any money or start him or something. If you are qualified, for instance, can link him. There's like gold business, go one time, London Bullion Market Association, where we international benchmark. Gold business, you come and say so. This is a first step in that direction. I mean, people are signing deal one time, so they are our partners. Now go forward, no gut. Can I say you may sign him gas agreement, first agreement, second agreement, third agreement, check him. The final product must be something that is good for the country, including at no harm to existing mine operators and alluvial mining operators in our country, period. Like stating this like clear. Me no one long man comes in and lay me power lo gold to plus lumigat Mount Kare. Plus lumigat Pogara. Plant the resources stuff. We will not sell our country's birthright. We don't know about our soap to these proponents too. As we advance to the next phase. If it is a deal not in the interest of our country, it will not go ahead. And I welcome the opposition leader to presentation we'll be doing today. The agreement we've signed, we'll give it to everyone, people look him. Now you recommend him, have no good law country? We'll correct it going forward for goodness sake. Have no 10 commandment. It's not 10 commandment. But my interest as your Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure resources in our country, we add value to them, and gold is the greatest resource we have in our country. For how long can we just export without knowing? Ask former prime ministers, former treasurers, do they know how many gold Lear produce for us? Pogara produce for us? Panguna produce for us? No, we have not been accountable to our people in as far as whatever resource we have in our country. Yet we accept the status quo. They're paying tax. Of course they're paying their personal income tax for the employees, like Lear. Of course they're paying GST. But what about corporate tax, for goodness sake? So we are stepping into a frontier as a gold-producing nation to own something that we could truly own. And Refinery Holdings is one of the proponents. This National Corporation, Mipla Setim, is a PNG company. And Papua New Guinea will not invest. Mipla to government no got money now. Mipla not investing. And I take the advice or thank you from a good suggestion. What if we auction the proposal? So for people to come in, we like also talking about Mr. Speaker, this Laos. Go like exclusive something where online like maintenance status quo, they are fighting very hard for us not to advance to that space. So the intention is good. We'll refine it. My government, I differ very, very strongly with former prime ministers who do not want to step into the area of adding value for our resources in our country. You may got fish, you may got gold, you may got oil, you may got all or something yet. You may not like processing, you may like exporting raw also. So gold business is simple. We want Nikures you karem gold bli kam la bulen amibla process him, you got karem go out. They must have factory bla process him taso. Pogara you karem kam process him, you karem go out like salim. Oktadi kam process him, you karem go out salim. Tolu kama likewise, all will too likewise, one black gate taso. No God can man hide him gold or briefcase na go out or hide him gold or private balloons na go out. Mibla like say how much bla gold, mibla produce him bla country bla mibla. And then you karem go. Mibla put him stamp bla kumul you karem go. Or suppose economy will get money and will retain him some plan and stop us some gold bullet, well, we will retain that down the line. Thinking the concept and right and in order, but the mechanics and making what the structure where me, help him existing industries, including all mining company will stop. And today I'm meeting them at 1 o'clock on this issue, as well as other issues, including our alluvial miners who operate in our country. If this business will add value to them, then we will allow it to go to the next phase. So we've started the process, we've started the discussion, we're stepping on the head of people who've been making super profits on our gold industry for a very, very long time. Mr. Speaker, the intention of having a gold refinery and mint in our country will take place, if not by me, but by my generation of leaders. But I embrace the recommendation that is put forward through this question. We'll look at it properly, refine it properly, so that we don't compromise existing industry, but we add value to it properly. And if these people, if we prove that they're not competent, as I said earlier, I don't know a bar or up to them. They're just a proponent that has been running around in the government circles. Former ministers and former governments, we know exactly how we dealt with them. They already had the concept. We're giving them an opportunity. As we advance to the next stage, if they're not competent, they don't have the expertise, they don't lead, most importantly, to the Loan Bull and Market Association, the global regulator of the gold industry, then we will go and refine it better to make our intention to process gold in our country come to realize, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. I look forward to all stakeholders. We'll be consulting all stakeholders, the alluvial miners, those in the industry, and those of you who have important ideas to contribute, please come free. This is not a private matter between one or two leaders on this side. It's a public matter of public interest. Let's all embrace this thought about processing our gold together in our country. If we cannot do it this time around, I don't think we can ever do it anytime. We must have believe in our own ability. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Governor of Long, West New Britain. Missing out the Honorable Governor of West New Britain. Standing order 2, I toggle say, Mr. discretion, Lucia, long and allow him supplementary or not. Honorable Governor of
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, me like ask him question below me golo Intergovernment Relations Minister, Honorable Minister Niningi. Same time, me like him Prime Minister to take note. Mr. Speaker, me like Savita Solol Mimi Salim go come all Electoral Boundaries Commission team. 3 time, 4 time, go all gata provinces na districts. Na to emi create him some kind false hope lo people also this la additional electorate and by come up before lo 2022. Yanap emi minister clarify him whether through imi by bring him this la Electoral Boundaries Commission report he come inside lo Parliament na imi by debate imi no got opportunity lo this la term. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Governor for Western Britain. This one, it really falls under Prime Minister, but let me take that question is answered directly to me, so I'll take it on. This Electoral Boundaries Commission, I understand the Electoral Boundaries Commission is ready, and hopefully next week or week after they will present their report, and then we can debate on it. Thank you very much.
Honorable Member of Jibitari.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question without notice is directed to the Prime Minister. And I would like the Minister for Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology to also take note. Mr. Speaker, I was part of a delegation that accompanied our Prime Minister, Honorable James Marape, to the United Nations General Assembly in New York, and then to Houston, Texas, where we witnessed the signing of the heads of agreement with ExxonMobil. It was important for Prime Minister to set the framework in place to progress the next stage of the negotiations to the signing of the multi-billion US dollar Papuan LNG and the Pinion LNG projects. Mr. Speaker, it is so important that we progress many of these projects from talking and negotiating platforms to the construction phases due to the fact that developed nations, our potential customers, are now seriously looking and taking actions to fight the global climate crisis by reducing the emissions level and looking at greener, cleaner, and blue energy sources as the solution for the future. Mr. Speaker, what this ultimately indicates is some of our resources in our backyards, like gold and gas, could be obsolete in the very near future. Economic 101 will be lost. Mr. Speaker, while some of these synergies are taking place on the world stage, COVID continues to significantly impact on many smaller and volatile economies. Businesses cut back on staff levels and delaying recruitment, closing branches and non-profiting divisions, and cutting out middle agencies in order to save money. As a result, Mr. Speaker, many Papua New Guineans are without jobs and are struggling to make ends meet. The question is, are there any solutions? The short answer is yes. Mr. Speaker, Papua Energy and the Pinion Energy projects will fix this for us. If we learned anything from the 2010 PNG LNG projects, is over 21,000 employment opportunities were created during the construction phase of this project. At its peak, about 12,800 foreign workers were recruited and about 4,800 Papua New Guineans were recruited. A vast difference between foreign and local workers due to the lack of skilled workforce in Papua New Guinea. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Talking to a few training institutes in PNG, we don't have the right training modules available in both the government and private-run institutes to develop skilled men and women in Papua New Guinea. The other place for the project, the Department of Higher Education, Science, Research and Technology must develop policies, standards and curriculums and make it available to both government and private-run institutes around the country so they can train and develop skilled workers in preparation for these projects.
You may got point of order, Honourable Member. Honourable Opposition Leader, what's your point of order?
You talking about reading statement, I'm reading statement yet, Mr. Speaker. Ask him question.
Point of order, I'm in order. Honourable Member, you will read him statement, go ahead.
I'm about to ask that question and he's interrupted. Yeah. I'm only estimating that 10,000 and 15,000 jobs could be created, and 99% of these must be ready to be employed in these jobs. It is also important, Mr. Speaker, that as MPs we must be prepared and must be able to train our district people, especially our young people, to be able to capture the job. Question now, just to satisfy the opposition leader. My question, Mr. Speaker, question 1. Prime Minister, can you give an indication of the timeline when the Papuan LNG gas project agreement will be signed? 2. When can we expect the construction phase of the Papuan LNG project to kickstart? much US dollars will be injected directly into the economy in the construction phase of the Papuan LNG project? Question 5. How many jobs will be created by this project? Can we expect the same number of workers as the PNG LNG project in 2010? 6. Can ExxonMobil guarantee this government that the first choice of employment will be given to Papua New Guineans? 7. Is the Department of Education, Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology ready to produce skilled workers? If yes, confirm if the policies, standards and curriculums are available to both the government and the private institutes. 8. And if no, when will these policies and standards and curriculums be developed? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Law. I just want to appreciate the member for Ijibitari, Vice Minister, for a very important series of questions. And he had the. I was pleased that he was able to send me a copy of his questions in advance a little bit earlier today. Mr. Speaker, to get to the point, he asked some important questions. Can you give indication of the timeline of when the Papua LNG gas agreement will be signed? Well, the project has been signed already. And so we now, in the second question, we're moving to the, I think the project components at the moment, pre-feed and feed stage. They will very soon, they've given indication to me when we send Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable Sam Basil, and a team to meet Mr. Puyane of Total in Paris, was specially to find out from him as to what is the timeline of the project. And has given indication combining pre-feed and feed. It should be completed if not by the end of 2023, then latest in and around mid-2024 around. When pre-feed is completed, I beg your pardon, when feed is completed, as the project is good to go now. And so, based on the front engineering of the project proponents then mobilize the capital. We will then be able to fully understand how many, what is the size and scope of the project, and then you would measure in terms of construction timeline, in terms of the labor to be deployed. But from looking back at what happened to PNG LNG, PNG LNG took about 4 years of construction. There was up to almost 10,000 both local as well as international workers involved in the construction. So PNG LNG is actually if my memory is not wrong, a 6.6 TCF of gas project. Papua LNG is 6.2 TCF project. So equivalent 2 trains. Put 2 train project in PNG LNG, another 2 train project in Papua LNG. Because Papua LNG is sourced from the Gulf of Papua, much closer to where the condensation plant, I beg your pardon, the refinery would be. The cost would be a little bit lesser than PNG LNG in my view. But look, with your question about when it start, possibly 2024 to 2026, 7, about the construction might take place. Pinyang project is not yet off the ground. We signed the agreement. We're now moving to the next level of agreement to ensure that on our side, in order the project is okay, we are within law. So the heads of agreement was secured. Now our state negotiating team are sitting, working to ensure the gas agreement is delivered to the expectations that we want. If they are sequenced properly, Papua LNG will be construction completed, and then you have Pinyang LNG construction that should start and pick up. If these 2 projects are synergized properly, then you would have construction activities in our country running for almost 7, 8 years put together. So if it starts at 2024, we'll do FID, then construction starts in 2024, 2025, you would expect our country to have construction activity running all the way to 2030, running Papua LNG construction and Pinyang linking into the system. With Pinyang, we're still going through the negotiations. Discussion hasn't completed. We will complete with a gas agreement, but the next phase, when the steam comes back, we'll be engaging with the Western Provincial Government, the leaders and landowners of where the resource sits, and what we want to do is both Papua and Pinyang going forward in the future. That will mean around, in the construction time, around again another 5, 6, 7, 10,000 people engaged in the construction. I've indicated to Exxon and Total very clearly that you must recruit Papua New Guinean workforce in this project. Both of these companies have given their support and indication to the fact that we must engage Papua New Guineans work, COVID restrictions aside. To ensure we got 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 construction. I do not anymore. Bangladesh, with respect to them, Filipinos, with respect to them, etc., outsiders coming in to work in the construction. Papua New Guineans must be given that opportunity. And we have now gone about the higher education minister, and it comes to the gist of your question, a very important question you ask, about whether we are prepared to use training facilities we have to ensure workmen and workwomen are trained. We've already signaled Port Moresby Technical College, Mount Hagen Technical College, Goroga Technical College, Ley Technical College, and Medang Technical College. 5 technical colleges we have to see how best we could ramp up training welders, training plumbers, training electricians, training those people who will be required to work in this. We have about 2 years or 3 years left before actual construction starts. And so in the next 2 or 3 years, I've requested Exxon and Total to tell us exactly what sort of technical expertise they need, where we could train up quickly, especially the helping hands. Not so much the deep skill needed for the big work, but associate themselves with the construction phase. We want Papua New Guineans to be at work. So this year we're looking into ensuring that our 5 technical schools are given some support and to ensure they are prepared. Working with these 2 companies, hopefully we could secure at least 5,000 to 7,000 Papua New Guineans in place. We are getting good support and indication from both Exxon and Total, and we look forward to ensuring Papua New Guineans are trained to work in the construction phase. You asked one of your questions, how many jobs it will create? Well, as I said, possibly up to 10,000. I don't have any indication as yet, but whatever it is, where we could train Papua New Guineans, train Papua New Guineans. Your 4th question you asked, how many US dollars will be directly put into the economy during the construction phase? History pointed to us that 2 train PNG LNG construction have increased the economy size from a 40 billion kina economy in 2010 and 11 to a 80 billion kina economy in 2014. That's at the back of 2 train LNG project in PNG LNG. Papua LNG will deliver us another 2 train, and Pinyang LNG, whatever final shape it takes, will add life to this. If you take PNG LNG as an example of an increase in a 40 billion kina size in the economy, well, Papua LNG and Pinyang LNG also can have that type of impact to the economy. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Well, honorable members, I'm asking, got talk travel of 4 10, 5 minutes, and me finish. All members, pursuant to statute, I present the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of the APEC Papua New Guinea 2018 Coordination Authority for the years ended 31st December 2015 to 31st December 2019. Chairman, Public Account.
Mr. Speaker, I move Parliament take note of the paper and the report be referred to Permanent Parliament of Public Accounts.
Is that the motion be agreed to with those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Honourable members, pursuant to stated, I present the report of the Auditor General on the performance audit of Gazelle District Services Improvement Program for the years 2007 to 2016. Chairman of Public Accounts.
Mr. Speaker, again, I move that the Parliament take note of the paper and that the report be referred to the Permanent Parliamentary Committee on Public Accounts.
Question is the motion be agreed to. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Honourable members, pursuant to stated, I present the report of the Auditor General on Performance Audit Tuition Free Fee Policy 2012-2018. Chairman, Public Accounts.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Parliament take note of the paper and that the report be referred to the Permanent Parliamentary Committee on Public Accounts.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favour say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Minister Communication.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Long give me this time, long me can present him Ministerial Statement, long me, long this House. Honourable members, I may recall that in my last speech to Parliament, I highlighted some key sector challenges and interventions my ministry undertook in 2020. I highlighted the need for the ICT sector to have proper coordination and oversight mechanisms. I also highlighted the urgency for major policy interventions in both the social and economic sectors. I now take this time to provide updates of work undertaken since. But firstly, I again opportunity to thank the Prime Minister, Honourable James Marape, for the confidence in giving me this appointment to head a very challenging ministry since November of 2019. I have held this important responsibility for 2 years now, and it has been an absolute honor and privilege to serve our people in this capacity. The Ministry for ICT currently maintains oversight on three key agencies. One, the Department of Information and Communication Technology as the Policy and Program Coordination Body. Two, the National Broadcasting Corporation as the Committee Policy Dissemination Body. Three, the National Information and Communication Technology Authority, NICA, as the Broadcasting and Telecommunications Body. The following acts of give meaning to the functions of three agencies, being Broadcasting Corporation Act Chapter 149, Television and Control Act 1980, Publishing Act 1996, Intercept Paper Act 151, Chapter 149, to information and communication is on prevention called the digital transformation policy of 2020. This was the first day of in the after 12 years. The transformation policy now provides direction digital transformation by the public sector and is trigger a equal this event include the development and launch 2020 the updating of the to the Department of Information and Communication Information Technology. Speaker, ICT is to engage a total of 105 positions. The restructured Department of ICT now has an established digital government and information delivery wing that covers government cloud services, digital service standards, cybersecurity, cyber safety, and digital information delivery. Mr. Speaker, for the first time, the Department of ICT is becoming structurally capable and relevant to the ever-changing technological environment. The Ministry has also sought Cabinet endorsement to commence work on some critical digital government services, which include a whole-of-government approach to government cloud technology service, a federated secure data exchange platform, also referred to as the Integrated National Information Technology Project, to facilitate electronic exchange and sharing of data amongst public bodies, and a single window national e-government portal for citizens to have access to common public information and services. The Ministry is also working closely with the Ministry for National Planning to deliver on two major government projects for 2022, including blockchain used in digital government and the procurement of a satellite for Papua New Guinea. Mr. Speaker, Cabinet has also endorsed through NEC Decision Number 100/2021 the establishment of a government social media management desk. The purpose of this desk is to establish standards and registry process comply with government operated social media. To this, the desk now tasked to monitor media information, take down and counter trending information. Mr. Speaker, in the last 3 months, the social media management desk has stepped up, monitor and take misinformation specific to COVID-19. Standalone desk down misinformation in phone posts in a week. COVID-19 has found the last 4 weeks misinformation of areas. A side effect of the COVID-19 vaccine, DNA, vaccine related, and number 4, vaccine equivalent to the mark of 6. The is currently focused on taking down viral misinformed posts relating to philosophy or religion. We also know that there is a lot of information on how COVID-19 related expenditure government. We encourage the public to report information to our social media management via it.gov.pg. My department will continue to partnership with the Department of Prime Minister, the National Executive Council, and the National Cybersecurity Center, or NCSC, to maintain this, as well as maintain the of cyber issues. We are also calling on all government agencies to step online and inform our people. I thank the support of my colleague ministers that are recognizing the importance of this, and I am also calling for this important as we make our way in 2022. Mr. Speaker, while on the topic of information, I'm also pleased to inform people that our good Prime Minister has initiated a Monday night talkback program on TV and radio from 8 to 10 p.m., where the Prime Minister regularly addresses the nation on government responses efforts to, amongst other things, COVID-19 and, of course, the economy. This program is gaining popularity, giving the opportunity to opinions to speak directly to the Prime Minister and contribute to the greater decision-making. I want to commend our Prime Minister for the initiative, which is directly promoting transparency and accountability. I also have a program on practice. When I started this program, it was going on every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Mr. Speaker, a major thrust of the 27 to 2009 reforms was the decision of monopoly in the fixed and mobile communication and of open competition in the telecommunications space. The ICT is no longer just telecommunications. We are now talking about a much broader scope that covers fast media convergence, cloud technology, fintech, and artificial intelligence. It is for the reason that the 10th of November last week, the Ministry hosted the first ever National ICT Summit. The National ICT Summit was a 100% event. It was my initiative to understand current trends and development in Papua New Guinea, so that my ministry formed a revised national ICT policy. After the successful 3-day summit, I'm delighted to inform that Facebook achieved a reach of 52,000, through which we interacted with up to 15,000 and close to 4,000 viewers. With the outcomes of the summit, the ministry will now be pushing ahead with the drafting of finalizing of suit to enabling policies and legislation to further accelerate the ministry catch-up plan. These policies and legislation include: 1. The National ICT Policy 2022, the Universal Access Service Policy 2022 to 2027, the National Broadband Policy 2022 to 2027, the National Cybersecurity Policy, the Government Cloud Policy, Government Social Media and Website Standards, Government ESS Standards, Freedom of Information Policy, Proposed Freedom of Information Bill, Digital Government Bill 2021. The 2021 budget allocation was 8.28 million, included an appropriate of 2.62 million for administrative support service for military. In the reforms, the department is now required to be the lead agency on digital transformation within the government economy, successfully realize and transform this use ICT. We will support from the government. Mr. Speaker, let me now turn to the National Broadcasting Corporation. In 2019, it was used that almost all broadcasting infrastructure, both here at the national headquarters at 5 Mile and the provinces, were in poor state of disrepair after neglect of many years. The once short and medium wave transmitted in the country ceased after 30 years due to neglect by successive government and management. To get our operations to go into led the demise of these powerful many of our offices and studios also eat them by their respective provincial authorities on the verge of collapse. This many of our committed and dedicated staff to either being relocated to other office buildings or forced to continue to work in their old studios that were not fit for human. I have visited most provincial stations, was reduced to tears when I saw the decay and disrepair of this once radio station in the provinces. Mr. Speaker, when I took responsibility, probably what we did management service many of the debts and financial burdens that were carried over users, in people in system and the end around and plot a more prosperous path forward. the immediate appointment in 3 members. Speaker, and NBC with a major maintenance of 3 offices and 2 complexes of NBC Island, NBC Morobe, and NBC Gulf 2019. This is made possible through the injection of 1.5 million by the national government through the 2019 PIP budget. Through a 5 million in the 2020 PIP budget, we continue this major Radio Enga, Radio Western Islands, Radio Western, and NBC East Newton provinces in 2020. We reopened NBC and NBC in July